Hello, Meta Universe. So, today, while I wait out to clock out for work, I'm sorry, clock out, no, clock in, Jesus. This is what happens when you work third shift. Let's talk a little bit about mental health and being neurodivergent and how we can spot and help people that are going through those things. I know lately with the discourse on gun violence and such, people are like ultra focused on mental health. And the thing is, a lot of the times, not only do we perpetuate the stigma, we don't know how to recognize certain things. Uh, I'm going to use a couple of examples because I think people don't recognize their own bias. Like the same way that we have bias in regards to race and culture and things like that. It, when it comes to mental health, there's a lot of bias in regards to that. Um, Having a mental illness does not equate in being a criminal or committing criminal acts. As a matter of fact, if you look at the studies and you look at statistics, usually if they are prone to violence, it'll be violence against themselves rather than others. There are certain disorders that are more prone to things like that. Obviously, you have your schizophrenia, you have your schizoaffective disorders that kind of like have that tendency to aggression and violence, but they don't always result in committing a criminal act. And I think that's where people are getting confused is the media and the politicians want you to believe that it's not the guns, it's everything else but the guns. When you compare to other countries, this is almost a United States exclusive issue, and mental health has been in decline globally, and you don't hear of other countries having the type of issues we're having in America. So that's why I thought I would make a video on being neurodivergent and how that doesn't always translate in what people think of a loner or somebody that's like out of it and living in their own little world, imagining all these things and, looking for committing violence and stuff. So I'll start with me. Well, let's explain what being neurodivergent is, because it's a fairly new concept. It's almost like one of these woke. I hate that word so much. I really do. But it's a term that is being thrown out there to create awareness. I'm a neurodivergent person. We did not know when I was a child. My parents were very involved parents, and they made sure that I was always engaged in activities and socializing and things like that. So there was a lot that early on we did not recognize because it wasn't presenting a problem on my day-to-day basis and on my day-to-day functioning. But then again, like I said, I had parents that were very involved and had us in a very structured, very safe environment. But I have ADHD. I got diagnosed as an adult. I started noticing the ADHD tendencies in university. It was very hard for me to stay concentrated in classes that did not catch my interest. It was difficult for me to function in the mornings. It was difficult for me to keep myself organized without having the structure at home. Constantly losing things, that type of thing. And as I became more and more of an adult and more independent, it obviously got a little worse. I also suffer anxiety. I have bipolar disorder. Mine is what they call cyclothymia. It's mixed episodes. So I can have my days where I'm in a state of hypomania, where you're not full-blown manic and you're not having a psychotic break or anything like that. You're just kind of like your energy level is up here. You're not sleeping well. You're irritable. You're cranky. It's difficult to focus. That type of thing. Or it sometimes it's a little bit more positive. Sometimes you think I'm going to conquer the world today. I'm going to go to work, and then I'm going to go to the gym. And when I get out of the gym, I'm going to go have dinner with my friends. And your mind is literally going 100 miles per hour. I also suffer anxiety, not generalized anxiety, but the panic attack, full-blown panic attack type of anxiety. And I have chronic on acute insomnia. So sleeping it's a really big struggle for me. So with all that being said, I was able to excel in school. I was always in gifted and talented groups. I only struggle with math for whatever reasons. Numbers are difficult to grasp for me. But if you would know me and interact with me and not know my issues, you would never guess. You would be like, she's a professional, very accomplished, went to college, graduated college, continue education, and that, that type of deal. So somebody being neurodivergent, it makes them a little bit different. It doesn't make them less. And I think people instinctively try to put people in a box and limit or create this picture in their mind, right? So that is my case. I have a coworker and a best friend. Both of them are in the autism spectrum. They are very high functioning, but they struggle a lot with socializing. It is very difficult for them to interpret social cues. So people are always looking at them and marginalizing them and sort of like, this person is so weird. And again, it's like not everybody's brain functions the same. They are just different, but they are not less capable. The one that's an EMT is an amazing EMT. He's extremely passionate about his work and extremely intelligent. The other one, same thing, went through college with honors, is a behavioral analyst, went to nursing school. So these are people that are high achieving people that have mental illness or behavioral disorders. And I think we need to separate aggressiveness and that type of thing from mental illness and what that entails. My brother that graduated medical school is in the autism spectrum. Again, extremely intelligent, high achieving person. It never gave a hard time to my parents, never really gave a hard time to the teachers. Has his own little struggles, but you know, who doesn't? Now, when it comes to other things like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, I think people, because of how media portrays those disorders, people don't have enough knowledge. It's like with the psychopath piece of it. Like, people right away just draw a straight line between crimes and psychopath. Oh, murder and psychopath. It's almost like with cheating. Like, I don't know if you ever seen, in a murder, if the person cheated on their wife, for some reason the jury right away just make them a murderer. No, there is not a direct line between one and the other. There's correlation, but it's not always causation. So first off, let's talk a little bit about antisocial, because that's actually the mental illness and the disorder. If you go by the DSM-5, it is people that have an antisocial personality disorder. And then you have layers to that. You have your sociopath. People with sociopathic tendencies are the ones that have a tendency to sometimes blow up and be aggressive towards other, because people with sociopathic behaviors are usually very impulsive, don't have a lot of self-control over their emotions, they don't have that social connection. They don't know how to interpret social cues. Their level of empathy is very low. So sociopaths have a tendency to act out against others. Psychopathic behaviors, or people with psychopathic tendencies, are pretty much every CEO from every huge company, successful company that you know. Believe it or not, these are your Elon Musks of the world, your Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, your Donald Trumps. These are people that have a very high opinion of themselves. They're charismatic. They mimic emotions because they need to. They don't have that ability, innate ability to have compassion and have empathy and be able to sympathize and empathize with people's emotions. So they mimic emotions very, very well because it becomes a survival skill. It becomes a coping mechanism for them. So, but they're not always going to be serial killers. Just because somebody has antisocial personality disorders, somebody has psychopathic behaviors, doesn't mean that they're going to go out there and kill somebody. Actually, the ones that kill are in the minority. Most of them function in society. Yes, it's difficult for them to function in society, again, because they don't have remorse. They don't experience remorse. They don't experience empathy. They don't experience that type of level of emotion. So they have a tendency to be very cutthroat, very selfish, very self-involved, and it's all about number one. So not everybody that goes out and commits a violent act is necessarily mentally ill, even though it feels that way, even though the rationalization would be that it's not always the truth. And we need to start being more discerning in terms of that, and knowing how to help those people, knowing what resources our community have, knowing the red flags. I'll tell you what disorder usually it has a tendency to at one point or another be involved in kind of like doing danger to themselves or others. Borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder is very misunderstood. People are not very familiar with it. Is difficult to diagnose. It's difficult to treat. And these are patients that have a tendency to connect to people at a codependent level, and they'll do pretty much anything for attention. So somebody that has borderline personality is somebody that when you start noticing certain red flags in their behaviors, you should be trying to get them help, because these are patients that, yes, they would go to any lengths to get the attention they feel they deserve. And they usually engage in codependent relationships, very intense, passionate codependent relationships. So, that is one disorder that, believe it or not, kind of like skates under the radar. And because it's diagnosed in women a little bit more frequently, it kind of like gets confused with hysteria, and she's just being a girl and whatever. But again, it doesn't always lead to committing a criminal act. Sometimes when people get to that point, the red flags have been around for a very, very long time. And that's what we need to focus is we need to start looking at people that are neurodivergent, and trying to stop marginalizing them, advocating for more resources, more education, and knowing when we need to start worrying, what behaviors we need to be looking at, what resources our communities have to help people like that. Depression, it's another one. Depression doesn't always lead to committing a criminal act, but many times it would, for the most part, people with depression have a tendency to hurt themselves rather than hurt others. But somebody going through a crisis, it's somebody that you need to be keeping a close eye on, instead of judging and saying, that person, they're just crazy. No, try to have a conversation. If you know somebody like that, make sure that they are safe at home, that they know that there are resources out there. And I think that's one of the things we need to advocate a little bit more. And we need to stop using mental illness as an excuse for the violence in this country, in gun violence. A lot of these violent, it's coming from a plethora of problems. It's coming because there's financial instability. It's coming because people are becoming desensitized to the pain of others. And that was highlighted during COVID. I mean, we were asking people to mask, something as simple as wearing a mask, to save their lives and save the life of others. And as a society, we had absolutely no fucking empathy. We proved it. Like, we prove that as a society, we are all suffering antisocial personalities, because people were like, I don't give a shit, I'm not wearing the mask, fuck Mima and Papa, they're old anyway. That was the attitude that people had during the pandemic. So we shouldn't be surprised that we're having people acting out aggressively. Our society has becoming more and more negligent. People kind of like center in their own bubble, and that can make that loneliness and that level of being desensitized to the pain of others and stuff can lead somebody in a crisis to do crazy stuff, like what happened in the last 27 mass shootings now since Uvalde, Texas. And law enforcement, we need to realize that a lot of them, as we've witnessed, are not appropriately trained for the job, are not committed to the protect and serve like we would like to think. And a lot of the times they're just not properly trained to handle certain situations and to be proactive with their communities. There has to be more community outreach, and I think that's part of what's missing right now. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was that is we need to stop playing into that picture that the media has created about mental illness, that makes us think that everybody that is mentally ill is going to be violent and is going to go out there and kill somebody and kill themselves, or they cannot function properly within society. No, they are just different. They're not less than you, they're just different. And believe me, everybody at some point in their life will experience depression, will experience anxiety, and that can put anybody at risk. So, let's try and be more empathetic to one another, more accepting of one another, and advocate, get involved. We're all in this together, and it's not going to get resolved until people learn to love their neighbors, and do unto others as you want done unto you. That's the golden rule, people. That's all it takes. So I hope everybody had a good weekend and you're getting ready for your Monday. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll be talking to you guys soon. Bye-bye.